Well, guys, the Greatest Royal Rumble actually aired on Friday at noon in the States, and I was at work. I could not see it, but I did end up finishing the whole thing off on Saturday night. Now, I had a chance to watch all the matches, and I had a chance to at least get a feel on how everybody else felt. And there were a few moments that made me laugh, and there were a few moments that I actually scratched my head. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible with all of these matches because it was 5 hours long, so I don't want this to be 30 minutes. But I'm going to get all the ridiculous controversy out the way. How I feel about the fact that it's like no women on the show? Honestly, I don't care because it's Saudi Arabia. It's their own country. They are making strides. They are making changes. It's going to be baby steps. They now allow women to actually have a driver's license now, and in 35 years, women can actually be in the same sports stadium as men. If you guys actually paid attention and looked in the crowd, you saw women right next to the men enjoying themselves. They couldn't have done that 35 years ago. It's going to take baby steps. These are laws that have been around for centuries. So baby steps, calm down. That's all I gotta say about that. We don't live there, so stop thinking like an American. Okay? just leave them alone. But in the very end, I'm actually happy with the changes I'm happy with the positive changes that's going on over there, as well as the fact that with steady strides, it might happen one day. I don't know. But I'm not fussed about it. I actually did enjoy myself watching this show. Number two, I have no idea why they decided to air Backlash knowing that there's actually two women's championship matches, knowing what they are wearing on the screen. Even though they went through all this rigmarole and not having women there, it doesn't make any sense for them to actually air that, especially what they were wearing. So, yeah, somebody's getting fired. And also, yeah, the Titus O'Neil trip up when he was number 39. Oh, man. I'm going to tell you that trip up launched 1,000 memes. And I was just laughing. I've never laughed so hard in my life, but oh my gosh. And Drew Gulak had probably one of the best Twitter pictures after the fact where his feet was hanging under there. If I find it, I'm going to put it up. But yeah, that was absolutely hilarious. But now that I got those little moments out of the way, let's get started talking about this pay-per-view. Just to let you guys know, these matches are not the matches that were actually on the card in this order. These are matches that are actually kind of out of order, a little bit out of sync, but I am going to talk about them nonetheless. Now, this is not a match at all. This actually was a bit of a segment when they showed that they actually had some tryouts in Saudi Arabia for developmental, and there were 4 Saudi Arabian prospects that they actually did show on the air. Now, the Daivari brothers actually did come out and they actually did interfere. There is a bit of controversy here about them coming out because Iran and Saudi Arabia have been 2 feuding countries for centuries. And having them out there, some of the people that were there thought it was in poor taste, especially what I saw on Twitter. But honestly, I see why they did it. They did this around the 80s, pretty much just to bring up a bit morale for the Americans, but it might be a little different here. These countries actually are at odds. They are not really fans of each other. So a lot of people consider that to be in poor taste. But seeing how the Saudi Arabians actually kind of, well, pretty much show the Daivari brothers where to go, I don't really see that as bad. Seeing how Saudi Arabia came out on top, at least they were able to save it, at least in my eyes. I don't live there, so it'd be something completely different. But next is going to be the match that, well, didn't really do so well at WrestleMania, but actually did fairly well here. And I am talking about Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles for the WWE Heavyweight Championship. It's probably WWE Championship now, but let's be real here. This match is leaps and bounds better than it was at WrestleMania, without a doubt. And honestly, they went all out. It was a double count out. People thought that was a cop out, but they're going to continue with this feud leading on to Backlash because they had to promote 2 pay-per-views at the same time because Backlash is actually a week away. So I didn't mind this match. This was a pretty strong match. I don't think anybody got missed out here. It is something that's worth watching, and it was somewhat decent, not too long. But moving on to the next match was the Bludgeon Brothers versus the Usos. This was the shortest match on the card, and seeing how Naomi could not come out and actually shake her behind and kind of hypnotize Luke Harper, unfortunately, it didn't help the Usos much. Did it squash them? Well, they didn't really have a chance to shine here. I'm not going to say they were squashed, but they didn't really have a chance to shine. But the Bludgeon Brothers actually retained the titles. And this is going to be a trend. There were a lot of people that retained, except for one. Now, and this is the match I'm actually talking about here. Bray Wyatt, or pretty much the leader of Worlds, versus The Bar. This was an oddball match because, well, let's just say the leaders of Worlds is actually a bit of an oddball pairing. But they actually did take the titles away from The Bar. That was the only transition on the card, mainly because The Bar is now on SmackDown, and actually the leader of Worlds are on Raw. So it makes sense for them to take the titles off of them. It was pretty obvious here. But honestly, it was somewhat enjoyable. A little weird, but somewhat enjoyable. Moving on to the next match is going to be, well, this was actually the opener. John Cena versus Triple H. This went on way too long. It was not interesting to watch at all. Triple H really couldn't keep up. It seemed like he had a really hard time keeping up. And John Cena did his best to make the match look good. Now, John Cena, after the end of the match, really did kind of get on the mic and was talking about how much of a privilege it was to be in Saudi Arabia. And despite his personal issues, he's happy to be here. No one asked for that. Screw you, John Cena. You're a great worker, but screw you as a human being. But anyway, moving on from there is Jeff Hardy versus Jinder Mahal. This is not really a match to talk about much. It was kind of short, but Jeff Hardy actually retained. It's a shame that nobody really cared much for Jinder Mahal, but a lot of people love Jeff Hardy. Huge pop in the room, but Jeff Hardy retained. Next match will be the ladder match for the IC Championship with Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, The Miz, and Samoa Joe. This was one of the best matches of the night. It was a decent amount of time. In my opinion, everybody had a chance to shine, but people thought the finish was screwy. In my opinion, it was actually pretty clever. I've never seen Seth do that, but Seth retains. Moving on from there to, well, the match that nobody wanted to see. The Beast versus the Big Dog. Let's be honest, I didn't really care much for this, but I really was shocked for the ending. I didn't really expect Brock to keep it, but Brock retained the title. And people thinking that they're kind of screwing Roman Reigns? Nah, they're trying to make people sympathize for him, and it's probably working. Moving on to the Cruiserweight match, and honestly, nobody really cared for this because nobody really knew who these people were. And a lot of folks complained about the actual fans in the crowd. You gotta understand, we see this every day. They don't. So there's a lot of people they don't know. So, but this match, they did their best. I'm not going to hate on that, but Seth retains. But they were somewhat into it, but they didn't really know who anyone was. So, I mean, it's understandable. But Seth actually retained here. I got no beef with this match. It actually was pretty good. Moving on to the casket match. The match I want to see with Taker versus Rusev. People keep saying he was squashed. No, Rusev was not squashed at all here. He fought Taker and he looked good doing it, as well as Aiden English interfering from time to time. This match actually was pretty good, and Rusev should be a household name after this. Even though he lost, he still looks good. They both look good in my opinion. No one got squashed here, at least in my eyes, but Taker actually won the casket match. Now the final match of the night was the Greatest Royal Rumble. 50 men came out, only one man stood tall, and that was Braun Strowman. Honestly, guys, I had a lot of fun watching this pay-per-view. I had a lot of fun watching this match. This match absolutely was amazing to watch. Even though some of the entrants really weren't all that surprising, because I don't know a lot of people from NXT or a lot of people from 205 Live, and even though it was somewhat predictable as a pay-per-view as a whole, it still was very fun to watch. It wasn't a glorified house show to me. It actually was a show that they were waiting for, because it seemed like everybody was happy. And now that Braun Strowman won the Greatest Royal Rumble, I'm hoping they do it again next year. Now, guys, those are my thoughts on the Greatest Royal Rumble. What is yours? How do you feel about the entire event? Because, honestly, they have a 10-year deal, so we might see this every year, and I wouldn't mind seeing this every year. But what are your thoughts about it? Leave it in the comments below. Let me know how you feel, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.